I don't know who needs to hear this right now, but
Woo! The NVIDIA RTX 40 series is a reasonable priced lineup of graphics cards coming out in late 2022, and the RTX 4080 12GB graphics card is perfectly priced and it represents an excellent value to consumers everywhere, and there's absolutely nothing confusing about the naming scheme of the 4080 graphics cards at all. Definitely no manipulation going on there. Is something I might say if I was strung out on crack cocaine for 3 days straight, worse than Robert Downey Jr. in the late 90s. Yeah. We're going to get into it, folks. We're going to talk about the pricing across the board, which in general, price increases I don't really have a massive problem with overall. The real issue here, honestly, is the naming of the 4080 12GB card. I really think that is what sticks out, and we're going to talk about Jensen's response to the pricing on the 40 series graphics cards and how price reductions are allegedly a thing of the past, which definitely has some credibility to it. So we'll get fired into that and talk about that 4080 12GB variant of the graphics card. But first, today's video is brought to you by SuperCDK.com, where you could save money on games for all of your favorite platforms, as well as software like Windows 10 Pro licenses for just $22, and then you can unlock the prestigious Dark Mode for Windows 10, which I honestly could not live without. It is blinding without the dark mode. You guys need it in your life. And now you can also save an additional 25% off at checkout by clicking Buy Now on any software products over there. Just go ahead and add it into your cart and put in my code JP25 at checkout and apply, and that'll bring our price from $22.44 all the way down to $16.83, a savings of over $5. And I'll walk you through how to get your key and install it on Windows 10. Go ahead and click Submit Order and complete your checkout from there. For me, that's going to be with PayPal, and then click on Pay Now. After completing the checkout, it'll bring you to your purchased order page, and it will update in a matter of seconds, or just go ahead and hit F5. Go ahead and do that one time. It came through literally immediately. I got the payment email that it had gone through and the delivery of the product exactly at the same time. Once you're done with that, go ahead and click on View Keys and Codes, and we'll get our code right here that we can go ahead and copy and paste in on Windows 10 by hitting the Start button and type in the word Activate. When you see that activation settings or see if Windows is activated, go ahead and click on that, and it'll bring up this right here, and click on Change Your Product Key or Unlock Windows 10. As I already have Windows 10, I obviously don't need to put in a new key, but just paste it in and then go ahead and click Next, and you are all done and set. For more information on SuperCDK.com as well as the coupon code, be sure to check out the links down in the description below. So in case you've been living under a rock, and if you follow my channel, you very likely do live under a rock, but you probably get great gigabit internet Wi-Fi access down there, and you still find your way to watching tons of tech content here on YouTube, like the kind that I produce. So the 40 series was announced a couple of days ago. Sorry, a little late getting to responding this, but I was trying to get all my ducks in a row. So we've got the 4090 24GB coming out at $15.99. So we're seeing a bit of a price increase there over the last generation 3090 there, going up by $100, which is, you know, somewhat reasonable, I guess, considering it's a more powerful product and everything. Then we have the 4080 16GB at $11.99, and finally the 4080 12GB at $8.99. Now, realistically, these have received a considerably larger price increase to the previous generation, but there's really more to it than that. It's the shenanigans of the naming scheme for the 4080 16GB and the 4080 12GB, which should realistically be the 4070, and I was involved in meetings in the last couple of days with NVIDIA where I heard this addressed and people asked questions during Q&As, and it was essentially they defended the 4080 12GB series as being a very high-end product that's still going to be a considerable leap over the previous generation, which is why they felt it was still should be classified as a 80 series product, even though we've never seen a massive CUDA-core difference in the 80 series like this before. We have seen some alternate variants going from the 1080 to the 12 gigabyte models of RTX 3080, but other than that, the performance was virtually identical, and it was just for people looking for a little extra VRAM headroom that were going to be looking to play maybe 4K and things of the like. But having a 20% reduction, roughly 20% reduction in the CUDA core count is going to affect the performance almost parallelly. Parallelly? Is that the word? Almost, yeah. Like you know, it's parallel to it. So it's like a 21 roughly percent reduction in performance is essentially what you're going to look at here, which means if you were playing a game and getting 100 frames per second and it was running 20% lower, it would theoretically run at 80 frames per second, which is definitely not a small number to golf at. If one could golf, if one might golf, they could golf at something like that. On top of that, we've also got a reduction in memory speed and memory bus, which is expected on the memory bus, as it does have less video memory, so of course that's going to be the case. But it has slower memory as well at 21 gigabit per second versus the 23 gigabit per second on the 4080 16 gigabyte. So really that is the main caveat here, and I think it goes without saying that this probably should have... There's a couple of different ways they could have gone that I just think would have gone down better. And again, I'm not trying to make this an attack on prices. You know, there's recessions in the world all over the place. All markets are being stretched thin, in particular the semiconductor business, which is needed for running pretty much the entire planet. Everything from your smartphone to your car to your fucking refrigerator needs some type of semiconductor technology in there to get that thing all running on the Internet of Things. And there's massive strain on that. Pandemic, you know, kind of waning in the waning days of it, but still, the global market is being stretched in every single way. I pay almost $5 for a single fucking chicken breast at the grocery store. Gas was over $4 like a month ago. It's finally coming down a bit, down into like the 350s, which I can't even believe I'm saying is reasonable. But hell, it's a lot better than paying almost $5 a gallon, which thankfully it never reached directly in my area, but definitely other places it was even much more than that. So global markets are strained across the globe, folks. To expect these graphics cards to have launched at the same exact price as the last generation is ludicrous, and I don't know who is fooling themselves into thinking that would be the case. And even with cryptocurrency on the decline, with Ethereum recently switching over to no longer proof of work, these GPUs are still going to be highly coveted, and they are costing more and more to produce. So I totally expect inflation and rises in prices, even if they are bigger than we have seen in past generations. That's just the way the world works right now. Have you seen the inflation numbers? They're obvious. The inflation is up at record numbers that we have never seen before in the history of recorded human history, and how fast things are going up in price across the board for necessities. Everything in the world is going up in price. Of course, graphics cards, which are essentially fucking toys for most of us, are going to cost more money. So I don't have any problem with pricing. It's a shitty thing that the prices have to go up. So if we're going to call the 4080 12 gigabyte 4070 and that goes up to $900, then it goes up to $900. That's what it is. I really don't see that point as a greed factor, but I definitely do have a problem with the 4080 12 gigabyte being called a 4080 12 gigabyte and not a 4070, or they could have gone with like a 4080 and a 4080 Super or a 4080 Ti, even though they left too much of a gap here for it to be at the 4080 Ti, because they'll probably do that at some point, and it'll probably have around 14,000, 15,000 CUDA cores, and getting it much closer up to the 3090, maybe even closer than that. Usually they'll only shave off just a bit, maybe 256 less CUDA cores, so the likelihood it might even be just a touch over 16,000 is certainly possible for a 4080 Ti type graphics card with 16 gigabytes of VRAM. So the namings there maybe necessarily wouldn't have made sense, but they could have had a 4080 12 gigabyte and then a 4080 Super at 9728 CUDA cores, and then still left room in the middle there to release a 4080 Ti a year from now, which is the typical cadence they stick with. So yeah, I think they did know what they were doing with the pricing, not the pricing, but the naming scheme and everything. And I don't think there's any real defense to the naming part of it. Again, the pricing thing doesn't really bother me too much. It's really the naming side of it. And I guess some people have made the argument that they only did this so that they could charge 4080 type prices. You know, for what the exact reason is behind it, it's almost impossible to say, but I guess that's just as plausible as any other excuse. for why they ended up going with this naming scheme. But I'm sure there's a certain level of dishonesty there to sort of, maybe take advantage of the consumer in some regard, whatever the exact motivation was, other than just money, or what their thinking process was behind it. I really can't say one way or another. Because it was their decision for their company, for their product at the end of the day. And it's up to you guys whether or not you choose to buy it or not based on that. And like I said, I don't like the naming scheme. The prices, though, another issue. And Jensen actually had a follow-up to this during Q&A, responding to PC World's Gordon Ung, I'm not sure how that's pronounced. But he replied to the prices on these cards and why they are so steep. And he said, quote-unquote, Moore's Law is dead. A 12-inch wafer is a lot more expensive today. The idea that the chip is going down in price is a story of the past, and that was directly from NVIDIA's CEO, Jensen Huang, in response to his question. So there you have it, folks. It's the prices going down are a thing of the past. I wouldn't expect in future generations we'll probably only see the prices increase. Maybe NVIDIA with their supply chain and how much things are costing, for whatever reason we don't know, they very well could need to cost this much in order to justify selling a product that they have to make a profit on. But the one thing they could still reel back is the naming on the 4080 12GB card. That's something I feel like they could address. Or I've also heard suggestions of, putting the full specs on the side of the packaging, which would probably mitigate some, maybe consumers accidentally going down the wrong path and buying the 12GB card if they sort of listed all the specs. Because usually if you've ever seen a graphics card box, it just says the model number and the VRAM amount, and then the other features on the back will usually be about like RGB and fans and it's 3 times cooler than our last generation, yada yada, from like aftermarket cards. But I definitely agree. They should have the full specs listed down the side, almost like the nutritional facts on the box of Cheerios. So I definitely agree that that should be something that's required when it comes to things like this, especially when consumers need to make an educated decision based on more than just one factor, like the amount of video RAM on the card. So there's a couple things NVIDIA can do to sort of reel this back, and I do hope that they do decide to sort of do the right thing here and, adjust the naming scheme and, acknowledge that it was, a bad call going with that. But the prices are the prices. I don't really expect those to see get changed. I'd be surprised. I'd love to eat my words, and tomorrow I'm doing a story on how they actually did reel back the prices. I hope that that's the case for consumers, so more people can afford these cards. But they could essentially price themselves out of their market. But I think these cards are going to sell at these prices. There's going to be enough enthusiasts out there that are going to go out and get them. And then there's probably going to be a lot of people that could still get a very good card from the 30 series, maybe picking up a 3080 or a 3080 Ti. You could probably find those now for under $900. In fact, I know you can, brand new, before you even get into the used market and stuff, which you should be very skeptical of right now with a lot of people shutting down mining rigs and mining operations. So you got to be careful with the used market for sure. But definitely the new ones, we have to wait and see what the the final performance numbers are on there. But I want to see these claims to be true. Like with the 4080 12GB, they're saying it's like up to like 2-3 times faster than a 3080 Ti. Whether we've ever seen that type of generational leap. But I guess NVIDIA is pretty confident that their products are going to be that considerable of a jump over the 30 series. So I guess we'll have to just wait until mid-October, and we shall find out. But I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Hope you guys all have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you next time for another video. Peace!